This video is brought to you by Keeps. Stick around to hear more about the discount that they are giving to the upper echelon community. Also, there's a link down below to the locals page. This video will be posted ad-free and in audio podcast form on that page for monthly subscribers. It's a way to diverge from YouTube AdSense and have a more stable income stream. So if you like the content, please consider subscribing there on locals.com. Alright, today I want to once again circle back to the concept of awards and discuss what appear to be, predictably so, expanding criteria that have infected the process of award and accolade qualification to the point where the Oscars Best Picture nomination process will soon center on arbitrary inclusion standards that will, ironically, exclude certain subject matter and film categories from the process entirely. Not too long ago, I covered the BAFTA Awards, also known as the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. The ceremony had seemingly updated their qualification criteria, and a document within their website clearly expressed how future nominations must meet a myriad of technical and inclusion requirements such as 50-50 narrative subject to gender balance, 10% LGBTQ representation, 7% deaf or disabled actors/characters, or 20% underrepresented ethnic groups. The list is long, the stat distribution is proportionally absurd, and it goes so far as to include a list of thematic requirements such as, quote, the main storylines, themes, or narrative of the video game is about underrepresented groups. The game should demonstrate diversity across the majority of the playtime in order to meet A3, not just a single section or element. End quote. And these types of requirements are from a master list of choice-based options, but a subcategory that includes multiple of these benchmarks will ultimately have an effect that most likely alters the creative vision for the films and video games that can be nominated, else they will be excluded entirely. This is already enough to make most rational people tear their hair out or begin flat out balding from the stress, which is verifiably linked to hair loss, by the way. And for those of you that do, there is a solution. Keeps can help you prevent hair loss. 2 out of 3 men experience hair loss by age 35, and the added stress of social media absurdity and daily life in general only increases that further. But now you can get Keeps delivered right to your home without even needing to go see your doctor. Some men can even regrow hair while on Keeps, effectively reversing the years upon years of constant stress and other detrimental factors. And the best thing is, you can visit keeps.com/UEG or click the link down below for 50% off your first purchase. That's keeps.com/UEG for 50% off your first purchase. Now back to the stress-inducing absurdity of film and video game award ceremonies. This document is long, with multiple subsections. It dives into how projects must have gender-balanced compositions, ethnicity benchmarks, and sexual orientation criteria in the workforce for the development team, which requires the question, if it's not even legal to ask employees these types of questions, whether on a resume or some internal survey, how can they even know? But it doesn't even stop there. There are dictations that eligible video games wishing to compete for BAFTA awards must engage in grassroots activism in their own community, must promote and award employment advancement specifically to minorities, or even make the game targeted to underserved minority populations with a, quote, clear strategy to reach them, end quote, thus eliminating even the autonomy of deciding how best to market your own product. Again, to be holistically precise here, these are all components of a much wider list which allows for a choice between various options, but selecting 3 out of 5 required options that are all asinine, restrictive, irrelevant to the creative process or final success of the product, and even, in the more extreme cases, options which totally redefine the artistic vision itself to forced subject matter and character identity, well, hopefully we can start to see why this is an affront to the creative vision and autonomy of practically any free-thinking artist. If they want to do these things and conceive their work from the ground up to that end, that's fine, and I support their choice and decision. But forcing these restrictions down upon any project wishing to be considered is obscene and offensive to the concept of meritocracy and artistic freedom. Well, just as I warned back then, the lunacy has spread, and now the Oscars are implementing diversity and inclusion quotas, which infectiously expand into the casting, support staff, subject matter, and more of films wishing to participate in the Best Picture Awards category. From the New York Times, quote, in June, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which oversees the Oscars, said it would add a diversity component to the Oscar race. On Tuesday, it explained how it's going to work. Beginning in 2024, with the 96th Oscars, films hoping to qualify for the Best Picture category will have to meet inclusion standards both on camera and behind the scenes. To meet the on-screen representation standard, at least one of the lead actors or a significant supporting actor must be from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, whether that means Asian, Hispanic, Black, Indigenous, Native American, Middle Eastern, North African, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander. There are alternatives. 30% of all actors in secondary or minor roles could come from two of the following categories: women, LGBTQ, an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, or those with cognitive or physical disabilities. Or the main storyline must focus on an underrepresented group. For the sake of time, I'll skip ahead here and read a few more paragraphs to round out the explanation of what this move pertains to and the interim steps that they will also take. Quote, beginning in 2022 for the 94th Oscars and again in 2023 for the 95th Oscars, each Best Picture candidate must first submit a confidential Academy Inclusion Standard form to be considered eligible, a baby step, if you will, to get the industry thinking more about inclusion. Then, in 2024, to qualify, a film must meet 2 of 4 standards in areas of on-screen representation, off-screen creative leadership, apprenticeship opportunities for members of underrepresented groups, and diversity in the ranks of the marketing and distribution departments. Other standards involve filling the ranks behind the scenes with women or people of color, offering both paid apprenticeships and training opportunities to those in underrepresented groups, or hiring multiple senior executives from those groups at either the studio or the film company charged with marketing and distributing the films. So there it is, an awards criteria that stretches to all major employment departments or senior executives, influences casting choices, plot devices, narrative decisions, and so much more, in direct contradiction of natural creative vision or meritocracy. And many viewers may immediately claim that the Oscars are not the penultimate achievement in filmmaking, second only to the joy of creating something truly unique. But whether or not we as disconnected watchers agree with it, to many creatives in the industry, they matter, and Best Picture is a category that many strive to be considered for. Now, before going further, I have to explain with precise examples why this is such a problem. The knee-jerk reaction to this criticism is that I must somehow be prejudicial, but consider the following. These criteria do not differentiate contextually between themes. Unless there is some sort of in-depth amendment to these positions, the criteria will flat out exclude many unique, well-crafted films for nonsensical reasons. Some people may be doubting this proposition, so let's use examples. The iconic film Castaway, starring Tom Hanks on a deserted island, centers on one single character. This is a film that does not meet most of the required criteria for either the BAFTA Awards or now the Oscars. And it could be that if you microanalyze the supporting staff through sexual preference or other categories, it might be true that the film squeaks by with a 30% ratio, but this is not a film that stands alone in the industry. Buried, a movie starring Ryan Reynolds trapped in a coffin underground, is another piece that centers on a single actor. Again, it's possible that the supporting staff might tip the balance, but I hope it's becoming clear that there are excellent films out there which will easily not meet these requirements. How about 127 Hours, a gripping tale, again centered on a single person, starring James Franco, or Moon from 2009 with Sam Rockwell and Kevin Spacey. None of these films actually won Best Picture, and some might even still qualify by the skin of their teeth. That's without even touching on the support staff and technical crew requirements, which is a whole separate thing entirely. And yeah, they're in the past, so they're obviously not going to qualify in 2024. But the point is, there are many films that will be excluded from the nomination process simply because of artistic premise, with absolutely no conceivable justification. Imagine if artistically a film does not qualify, so there ends up being some sort of surface level, well, so-and-so is 1/4 this, so they count, and over here we have so-and-so who is 1/8 that, so they do too. Are we going to have everyone take an ancestry test in the support staff just to try and make the cut? For those still in disagreement, let me expand even further. What about historically accurate dramas? It is entirely plausible that movies will center on specific battles, accurate, defined, and recorded historical battles from World War II or I or the Revolutionary War, any number of things. And those battles might have a cast that does not meet the requirements. And instead of being free to construct the narrative with autonomy or historical truth, the director and writers would have to create roles to meet the arbitrary and ridiculous inclusion standards. What about movies pertaining to medieval royalty or nobility in general from certain ancient cultures? It's highly probable they could be constructed to meet the standards, but what if the director wanted to do a movie about the Roman Emperor Nero, for example, exclusively within the confines of his own mind as he goes insane and plays music to the sight of Rome burning? Films do exist, excellent films, which fail to conform to arbitrary diversity and inclusion standards. Not because of any prejudice, but because of simple, creative, or historical premise. The idea of forcing artists to produce work that conforms to some new age diversity quota is fundamentally offensive. The concept of ensuring that they meet a staged and restrictive set of standards which have nothing to do with the quality of a film is an affront to meritocracy. And while many participating films might already operate unhindered in this new rule set, which is a very good thing, there are undoubtedly going to be examples of high quality productions that become excluded, paradoxically, by the authoritative and aggressive inclusion standards. All in all, the idea of saying you must make your film with this set of characters, standards, and themes to be considered for awards or accolades is like telling a painter you must cover 20% of the canvas with red paint, and if you don't, your painting will be thrown out of the best paintings of 2024 competition. What if they want to paint the night sky or the green grass? Dictating how art must look and be composed is not a standard we should be cheering or ever supporting. But that's it. If you want to support, there are links down below: locals, merchandise, social media, keeps with your first order 50% off as a discount, and another gaming YouTuber to support as well, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.